We're mic'd up with Montgomery.
Welcome to Real Talk.
Where real estate meets real conversations.
I'm Sean Harvey.
I'm Mary Nagelbauer.
And I'm Brittany Newharth.
How is everybody today?
I'm
Good.
doing good. We're ready to get some conversations rolling today.
Yeah, thank you to all the listeners that are listening in on this today. We really appreciate your
All
viewership.
two of you. We love
Yeah.
I listen. I like to hear myself talk. So,
Well, we're going to discuss today, I think what we would kind of like to discuss is how old you have to be to buy a house and what the offer process looks like. I think we all have probably pretty good opinions on some of these subjects, but
yeah, we were doing some research, and actually, the average age of a home buyer is 56 years old.
Which is much higher than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, definitely.
It really went up, and I think what was it previously? It was 49.
Yeah,
49.
so up 7 years in age, and kind of like, what do you think that is from? Like the age going up, and
Probably prices.
yeah,
Probably interest
Prices
rates.
are a little bit higher. And I think the younger generation, I think they're kind of minimal people too.
Oh, yeah.
I think so, which is actually rolls into what the average age of a first-time home buyer is 38.
Yeah.
So I think some of these, my opinion at least, is that some of these younger people are just renting a little bit longer than we've seen in the past.
Yeah. So if you think you're behind in life,
Yeah.
wait till you're
How
38.
old? How old were you guys when you bought your first house? Do you remember?
I was like 22, I think, 21, 22. But I mean, it's South Dakota.
I was
This is
probably
throughout
20,
the whole nation.
Right. I was
so.
probably 26, 27, somewhere.
So long ago, I think I was 27.
Yeah.
But my daughters were both 20 when they bought their first house.
So it really
Yeah,
depends
that's
on.
surprising.
Well, having a real estate parent, I think, helps too. You're like
Sure.
convinced.
I
of the
wasn't a
buy.
realtor when Carly bought hers, though.
Yeah. But everybody knows it's a good investment.
Yes.
So I think if you're,
Yeah.
if you guide, I mean, there's some kids that are ready for it and some that aren't.
Yeah.
But I was really surprised to see the average age of the home buyer was 56 years old. That was
Yeah.
a lot older than I would have guessed.
I feel like a lot of people travel too. They're like, we don't want to have a house to care for. And it's so nice to just pay one payment, not worry about mowing your yard and doing all that if you're
True.
renting. So.
Yeah. Well, if you look at a lot of the bigger cities, they have, more condo life or,
Yeah.
different things like that where you just rent and you don't have to worry about much except for going to work and living life.
Definitely.
Around here, it's a little different.
Oh,
We
yeah.
all have big yards and acreages and everything else.
Yes.
So,
So, well, that'll kind of roll us into then. Now people want to put in an offer. They're ready to put in an offer. They're at that age. They're at that time in their life. They're ready. So they look at a house. They love this house. They want to put in an offer. What do you do?
well, my theory is that the offer is always, to me at least, one of the most important pieces of buying a house. Because it really outlines what you're paying, what your terms look like, what inspections you're getting, and things like that. So
Yeah. So what's the aspects of an offer? Like what is all included in an offer? You got your actual purchase agreement. Then you got
purchase agreement, I think, is probably the biggest thing to me.
Yeah.
So,
Then you have
most variables.
Yeah. Then you got bill of sale. You got if you have a home sale contingency. You have your pre-approval with your lender.
property disclosures.
Yeah. Lead-based paint disclosures.
Yeah,
stuff.
I think what is the first thing on the offer is always what price do you want to pay for the house?
Oh no,
And
it's your name.
Well, it's your name.
Yeah,
I mean, but
it's
we all
like
know what.
This is like back to high school
Yeah,
where it's
yeah.
like write your name on the top.
But
That's-
once you get past the
First
basics, the first real question is what do you want to pay for that house? And that's always a hard one. And people always say, well, what do you think I should offer? And it's like, well, that's very subjective. I mean,
Yeah.
is the market good? Is the market bad? Do you love the house? Do you kind of like the house, but you got some work to do? There's a lot of variables that play into that.
Definitely.
I always tell, I don't know about you guys, but I always tell my buyers that if you lose the house because of your offer, I don't want you to be sad about it. But if you get it, I don't want you to be sad about it.
Exactly.
So you just got to find that happy medium in there.
And it's hard too because you wanna get the house and it sucks because you're always like, what if? Well, there's gonna be another house. You put in an offer and you're not comfortable with it. It's a forever payment, not a forever payment, but it's a payment that you're gonna make for a long time if you go too high.
I would say most people do 30-year mortgages. I mean, not everybody, but you can do 15, 20, 30, but a lot of people do 30 just to keep the payments down. So if you're 38 years old buying your first home, you're going to be 68 when you pay off your first home.
Yeah.
In theory.
In theory. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
So that's something
Yeah.
to think about too.
Yeah.
Sounds like a long time, but it goes like that. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then there's refinancing and all that stuff.
Well, there's
I
Yeah,
don't know
there's
how
a
many
lot
people make it
that's
to the
involved.
end of 30 years by just paying subtly. So,
Yes. Yeah.
So you got on your purchase agreement, first document. Well, first document people are going to see is a contract, which we'll kind of talk about that another day. But your purchase agreement, you got your name, you got your asking price, you've got that earnest money we talked about. What's kind of your next aspects that you're going to lead into?
Financing. Cash, financing, contract for deed are your three options. And by the time you're writing an offer, if you're financing, we should really know what
type of
financing it is.
Yeah, definitely.
And who's doing the loan?
And that can change. We've had people change it throughout. We do an addendum, so that's another document that can come later onto a lot of purchase agreements, whether it's changing a closing date or changing a lender. But it does change. But normally, a lot of people stick with their same lender. That's right on it. Sometimes we don't have the purchase agreement the day of putting in the agreement, but usually that, or the pre-approval, but usually that comes right with it.
And I feel like after the last couple of weeks, who would you recommend lending local, Mary, or would
Yes,
you?
I would recommend lending
Yeah,
local.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Those are the people you're going to go into the bank and you're going to look them in the eye
Yeah.
and you're going to see them on the street and say, "Hey."
Yeah.
Mary and I have had a transaction going for quite a while now, longer than it should have been, and it's at no fault of the buyer, the seller, or either one of the agents. It's an out-of-state lender, and it's just been an uphill battle. So I know that Mary, Brittany, and I all are in agreement on this.
Yes.
Go to your local bank and try to get your loan first.
And here's like a story of it. I had a buyer who was ready to buy it. They found the house. They went to their lender. They got pre-approved. The lender's like, yeah, no problem. Put in the offer. Did all the work. It came to about 3 or 4 weeks before, and the person just ghosted them. And it was an out-of-state buyer. Never talked to him. And finally, after calling multiple times, after reaching out, emailing, messaging, everything we could do to get a hold of them, we called their office again and we got to the secretary. And they're like, oh yeah, it says right here that your loan's denied. They didn't even have the respect to call. So it's like, you won't get that in town.
No.
Well, for one, you could show up and talk to them. But two, they're going to always reach out. They might have to give you bad news, but they're going to give it to you. And they're going to
Yes.
talk to you straight. And they're going to give you options. And they're going to be there for you. So,
And we have relationships with the lenders in
Yes.
town where, it's a little harder to develop relationships with out-of-state lenders because, you might only work with them once or twice.
yeah. And this person ended up going local and they saved their butt. And that was the thing. They could come back out and they could help them and got them their loan within 3 weeks of closing. So that was
Yeah, I
amazing.
had that happen too. A local
Yeah.
lender bailed us out more than once.
Yes. So sometimes it's just nice to
Yeah.
go with them first.
Exactly. And while we're on the topic of financing with your mortgage, there are certain things that you should definitely not do when you're financing a home,
Yes.
such as
Buying a car.
buying a car.
Well, so I think they're called Klarna. You can see it when you buy something on Amazon. You can split it into 3 or 4 payments or more
gosh.
payments.
Oh, yeah.
People don't
I
think about
had
that.
never heard of that until recently. I had a deal going, and the guy had several of
Or
those.
a firm, I think.
A
too.
firm, yes.
Yes.
It was a firm.
Yep.
That's
And
what
then
it
you
was.
can, it's a
Yeah.
loan. Like you
Yes.
fill out loan documents for it and sign a loan documents. Like I've looked into it before and that could actually stop you.
It did,
But it seems so
almost did.
simple because it's like I'm buying this $300 thing on Amazon. Cool. I could split into 3 payments. That just helps. No, like that kind of stuff, credit cards, cars, anything that's a loan, pulling your credit especially is not good.
Yeah,
Well, even having those, he had them for a while, didn't think anything of them, and then when they did the final credit check,
They
all
come
these
up.
things have to be paid off before you can close. Well, holy cow!
right.
You
Yeah.
have 10 of those, and
Yeah,
Yeah.
anything that dings your credit or will show up on your credit, just don't do it while you're financing a house.
Yeah.
It's not good at all.
Yeah, there's a funny video out and it's a realtor and one of their friends comes up and like, oh, I'm buying a house, but with this other realtor. And they're like, oh, that's amazing. You should buy a new car. And it's like, we would never say that. Like,
No.
don't actually do that. It's a joke.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
that. Don't celebrate by buying a new car. Wait
new
till your
furniture.
loan is closed. Yes. Or even financing your furniture. People don't think about that too, is financing your furniture. Cool. You can get 0%. Just don't do it. So
Yeah,
It's-
exactly.
yeah, it's going to be it's going to not let you do your loan. So it's either going to delay it or,
Kill it.
yeah,
Yeah.
completely kill it. And
Yeah.
you could lose that house. So don't do it.
And the other, I guess, the next phase of that purchase agreement goes into when you do finance a house, the whatever you are paying for that house, if it's $150,000 or $500,000, the appraisal has to support that.
Yeah.
So the lender will hire an appraiser, and the appraiser will go out and they will do their job, and they will tell you, yes, it's worth that much money, or no, it's not worth that much money.
So have you ever had one not appraised?
I personally have not.
I have.
I have. And my person, they paid the difference because they really wanted this property. We talked to the appraiser. I pulled my comparative market analysis stuff on it, and we had it lower and stuff. The person put in an offer in higher than what we had listed. So that kind of is where it got them. But they wanted some more money, or they wanted the chance to get it. It was an acreage, so they really were fighting for it. And they knew that they put an offer in over asking, which was over appraisal. They paid the difference because they really wanted it. So it is an option. Just because it doesn't appraise for that, their bank was like, we're only going to finance this much. That person paid, I think, like $5,000 more. Nothing crazy, but they really wanted
Yeah.
it. So
Also, a really good note to self on why you should choose the realtor you choose is so that you don't run into that, because the agent should have done the homework ahead of time.
yeah.
And,
But when somebody,
sometimes,
yeah, in
just
this case,
that case, it was
yeah.
just somebody paying. Over.
yeah, but you could ask your seller or selling agent and stuff, or buyer's agent, to run the market analysis on it. Like
Right.
if they haven't already,
Yes.
they can do that. And
Yeah, and even if you're
Depends.
buying a house like a for sale by owner, or one that's listed by another office or another agent or whatever that looks like, your buyer's agent could always plug those numbers in and see what the actual value they think
Yeah.
it is too.
And that comparative market analysis isn't an exact appraiser. Like we are appraisal. We are not appraisers, but we can run that. It's a similar aspect. It's just not like a certified deal. We're not going down to the nitty gritty like appraisers are, but we can get you pretty dang close. And appraisers respect us too, in the sense of when we price a house, they're asking us too, like, okay, what were you looking for if it doesn't come in perfectly?
We're looking at past sales, and that's what they're looking at too.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it's all the same properties, which is helpful when they're
And you update them. I posted the other day that I was updating the market analysis because I did a CMA for somebody for a house they were looking to list a couple years ago. Well, stuff has changed. Things have changed even in the last year. So we can update those as we go and kind of give you the right numbers. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another big item on the purchase agreement, I would say, is home inspections.
yes.
Do you guys, I mean, everybody, we all recommend home inspections.
Yeah.
I mean, do most of your buyers and sellers or buyers do them?
Now, especially 2021, different story. People were fighting. A lot of people didn't do them, and it probably came back and bit them in the butt.
I probably have
Yeah.
about 70-30 that 70% do them and 30%
I
don't.
agree with
And
that, yeah.
I think the people that aren't doing them, it's not people that just have all the faith in the world in other people. It's the people that are remodeling the house anyways. That's what I've been seeing.
Yeah.
Like we have people that buy houses to flip. They might not be doing an inspection because they're already going to do some sort of inspection on their own. They already know it has work. They already know the house is being sold as is. In that aspect, they
I
might
mean, we
not.
always recommend that we do
I would
it,
never tell
but
them not to.
I'm the type of person that I've personally never had one done on anything I buy, but I have started to do sewer scopes. Sewer
Oh, yeah.
scopes are big.
That's starting to become a lot.
Because we have,
Yes.
in the community we live in, we have a lot of old houses, and a lot of them have clay or clay tile sewer pipes. So the biggest, and that's one of the biggest expenses you can have if you run into a house that's
Oh,
got
yeah,
cracked
for
or
sure.
collapsed or roots or something like that. For me, the rest of it's like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna update this at some point anyways.
Yeah.
But
We bought our house in April, our first house. So as first time home buyers, bought our first house, did the inspection, did everything great. And then by September of that same year, we had to rip up our whole basement, replace the sewer line out to the road. So it's something we will never not do.
yeah,
But we fixed it all. But thankfully, we had insurance on it because it was, I think, in the end, about $14,000 to replace all that, and we did a lot of the work ourselves.
Right.
So it's a big cost.
Yeah,
So
it's a very expensive process.
yes, so there's certain things where we're never going to tell you not to do an inspection. Certain people might not choose it for their own reasons, but we will never not say to because we want to protect our butts. But also, we've seen a lot of
Yeah,
stuff.
we want the buyers to, if you go into a house and you love the house, but you get that home inspection done and it just scares you to death or it's just overwhelming amount of money, we are perfectly fine getting you out of that contract. And you have every right to get out of that contract. And you should if you're not comfortable with it. The last thing we want to do is for you to call us 2 months after closing crying and telling us that this was the biggest mistake of your life. That is
Yeah.
never, ever, ever what we want to see.
Definitely. So
And it doesn't happen very often. I'm
no,
not saying
but
it
there's
but-
stuff that people hide, and the inspector's really good at digging that up. So do due
Yes.
diligence in that
Well,
sense.
and even if they aren't hiding it, there's things that were found on our home inspection that I had no idea.
does, right?
You know,
Yeah, exactly.
You
Some
wouldn't
people only
necessarily have that.
Yeah, like you might only own your home for 2 or 3 years and then turn around and sell it again. You might not know that something is hidden because you've never seen it.
And
So
you know,
it's
But
I've
how,
never
how
had a
many of
sewer
us
scope.
take the how many I've never had a sewer issue with my house ever, but I've never had a sewer scope either. So
Yeah.
it was just luck. So
common.
but how many of us have ever been in our attic?
Yeah,
and how many of us
I mean,
tend to go in the attic?
Yeah.
yeah, my husband has, but he
Yeah.
built the house, so
Yeah.
I hope he's been up there. But yeah, it's true though. After that building process, after that inspection, you can go multiple years without even seeing it. So
Oh yeah.
and there's a lot of things that can happen in a year, especially all these storms.
Oh,
terrain
for
shifts and
sure.
that.
Yeah.
You lose like 2 shingles, you think it's no big deal. Well,
Well,
it's
other
actually-
things that we do find in attics, speaking of attics, is when inspectors go in attics, I've had them find broken rafters before,
Oh yeah.
just because of the weight of the
I
snow.
thought you were gonna say bats. I'm like, oh god.
Well, bats is an
Find those-
option
Yes,
too.
there's bats. There's bats in town, everybody.
But broken rafters is pretty common, actually. If we get a heavy snow and it sits up on your roof all winter, people don't realize it, but eventually your roof will start sagging. And it's not a hard fix by any means. It's a very simple fix for the right person.
Yeah.
But you want to make sure it gets fixed before things start drooping in.
Oh yeah, before it causes more issues and
Yeah.
breaks more.
Yeah.
So, okay, what's the next aspect of a first agreement? I'm trying to
what
like
are we
list it
what are
for
we
you.
going through? Yeah.
Well, do you want to talk about like seller?
Seller concession.
Yeah, like it's kind of a hard topic because it could be a long topic, but you can ask for seller concessions to help pay for down payment, to help pay for closing costs, to help pay for interest rate buy downs.
Repairs on the house.
Repairs, yeah, certain aspects people, well, that kind of goes into the provisions and stuff, but there's people who ask for a hot tub or other extra stuff.
Yeah.
But there's so many things you can ask from a seller
But
as a buyer putting in a purchase agreement.
there's a lot of buyers that don't have, so say your closing costs, which are going to be your appraisal, your loan origination fees, your home inspection fees, typically half of the closing fee, half the title insurance, the survey fees, some of those fees. There's a lot of people that don't have $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 laying around to do that. Now there are a lot of programs out there. There's second mortgage riders with no interest that you can get for your down payment. There's grants. There's college grants. There's different things like that you can get. But a lot of people don't have $5,000 to $7,000 laying around. So how that works is you can actually roll that into your mortgage by asking the seller to pay for it.
And you can ask the seller, so say they have a house listed for $100,000, you can offer them $105 in your financing so that your loan is for $105, and then ask them for $5,000 towards closing. We've seen it before, and personally that's what we have done on our house. We came back with an offer on our first house. We came back with an offer and we asked for seller concessions, and they're like, if you up the purchase price, I'll give you that concessions. And
Yeah, the biggest thing to note is that it still does have to appraise for
yes,
105.
yeah. We offered under like 10,000 under
Yeah.
the asking price, and then they're like, I'll go up, if you go up 5,000, I'll give you 5,000 in seller credit, because for them in the end it's the same price,
Right.
but for us it really helped us out in the long run.
The other nice thing about doing it that way is, so say you do have 5,000 in your bank account, whatever that looks like, but you do want, you don't want to spend all your money on your closing costs. You can roll them into the loan that by doing that, which gives you money. Maybe you need to go out and buy a new refrigerator or a couch, or maybe you need to put new front steps on the house. So it saves you that cash in your bank account to do that, or just to have that emergency fund available to you if the furnace stops working in a month or whatever that looks like.
Have you ever moved into a house and never done anything at all? Never bought furniture, appliances, nothing.
Never.
You always want to buy a new rug.
Every
Buy new
house
furniture.
every house Amber and I move into, she does the unpacking, and I put the fence up.
Every time. That
Every
is
time.
true.
Yeah.
When we first bought our very first house, that's what we did. We dropped our fencing stuff off. Randy was outside putting up the fence, and I was inside doing it.
Yeah, first
Sean
with having
showed up.
dogs, I guess.
Yeah, I was
just-
like, Sean showed up, and it was actually the day we got engaged, so it was kind of cool. And Sean showed up, and I was like, oh, hey, Randy's putting up this fence, and I'm sitting out here. We had to sign some paper or something we missed it.
oh yeah.
Yeah, sign that, and I'm out here like, I just got engaged, and I'm unpacking the house. He's building a fence, and life goes on.
But I know you've done quite a bit of work to your house since you moved in.
New floors, all three of the last houses I lived in, we put in new flooring right away, and
Definitely.
tore out some trees this
yeah.
last one.
I've never bought a house that I didn't do work on. The very first house I bought, we completely gutted the main floor and redid the entire thing in 6 weeks, top to bottom, down to the studs, new wiring, insulation, everything. And that's how I just started out. So
Yeah.
why change it up?
Right.
So
Exactly. So, in that aspect, we've got the seller commissions, the next kind of big topic on a closing house. Our purchase agreements have changed. It does have commission stuff on there.
Mhm.
We'll kind of get into that topic more, but we've told you why we think it's great to hire a realtor. We're also realtors, so
But now and we won't dive into this
No.
too much, but what the important thing to note is that there's I think 3 check boxes right now. Is the buyer paying the commission, their buyer agent commission? Is the seller offering a buyer agent commission? Or is the buyer going to ask the seller's agent for a buyer commission?
Yes.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Yeah.
yes.
So those are the 3 aspects there.
And we're open to talking about it.
Oh, absolutely.
We'll break that down. We'll talk to you. It is a newer thing, so we like to
I mean,
talk to people about it in person.
it's
because
new in the aspect that it's on the purchase agreement.
Yes.
It's not new in any shape
has
or
always been
form
happening.
because it's always been a negotiable point, and it's always been an elective point for anybody doing this. But now it's on the purchase agreement, so it just looks a little bit more different when we're actually presenting offers.
And it's the same thing, like I said earlier. Money talk is hard talk. It sucks. It sucks to pay anything. It sucks to go out to eat and pay that price. But we're here to break it down. We're here to show you why we're worth it. So
That's right.
And
We'll talk
most
to you about
people
it.
don't want to work for free.
Exactly.
Any job you have, you want to
we
be
love
paid for.
our clients, but we also love to provide for our
And
families.
real estate
So
agents
sorry.
don't get paid unless the transaction successfully closes.
Yeah.
So
So we're trying to get you there too.
yeah,
Just
absolutely. That's
happy
why we
in a house.
and yeah, we want you to be happy at the end of it too.
And if it looks like we're not doing much, that's the goal.
Yeah.
We want to do things behind the scenes so you
Yeah.
don't.
Yes,
You
we
don't
try
have
to
You want
about
an
it.
easy transaction.
we try to figure out the disasters before we tell you there was a disaster, or if we tell you there was a disaster.
Definitely. Yeah.
You know, we don't grow this gray hair for fun. So
No. I know. I think I got a gray hair already. I blame
And then
Reese.
I think we're kind of just touching on the high points of the
Yes,
purchase agreement.
it's-
It's not all of it because we could go over it for hours probably, but the only other biggest variable is additional provisions, I would say, and that can
Yeah.
spell out a number of things. That's where we used to put seller concessions, but now we have a separate box for that.
Yeah.
But that's where you could say, well, I would like to. Maybe you're doing a contract or asking to do a contract for deed, or maybe you want the seller to do. Maybe you want them to repair the back deck before closing. You could spell that out in there.
I had one where the house did not have central air, and they wanted the seller to put in central air. That's probably a place where I would put that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That would.
Kind of those big things where it's not like, I don't know, it's not
Yeah.
in the bill of sale maybe, but
And there is no normal to that, I don't think. I think every house has this different situation, and every buyer has a different situation.
so people can put in verbal offers, but nothing is set until it's written out and signed and agreed with on both sides. And sometimes, say you go to show a house, that person might be like, hey, I'm finishing up this bathroom. In that additional provisions is where they might say, like, we're going to write this down and
Right.
put, you'll finish this bathroom.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Or you'll finish doing XYZ. That might be a spot where we put it, where we're like, yeah, we know you said that. We know you promised that, but we're just going to write it down. Because
Just to make
nothing
sure.
is set in stone until it is wrote down.
And
And
that's
signed
that
and
is a
agreed on.
very good point. So
Yeah.
just because you and your neighbor talked about buying their house for a certain dollar amount and they would leave the hot tub and the picnic table and this and that does not mean anything. If you get to that closing and you don't have anything written down and that stuff is gone, then what proof do you have?
Yeah.
And that's, I think, where it's most important of all to have everything in writing. And that also, along with the purchase agreement, is why we have a bill of sale. And that bill of sale specifies what stays, whether it's the
Yeah.
refrigerator, the stove, the sump pump, the garage door opener,
The fans,
the
mirrors.
Christmas lane
Oh,
ornament.
yeah.
I mean,
Oh,
all
yeah,
of it is
that's cool.
specified on there.
Yeah.
And that's where it's really important to have those items
Yeah.
marked down.
Everything in writing.
Yeah.
And signed and agreed on. And
Yes,
filed.
absolutely.
Everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of is a brief summary of the
I would say
purchase
pretty
agreement.
brief.
Pretty brief.
Yeah.
But I feel like we don't want to bore you with every detail of
No,
it.
and
So.
each time you have purchase agreement, each time you're buying a house, we will 100% go through every single check mark with you while you initial it.
And
Before you initial it.
every purchase agreement is a little different. I mean, we
Yes.
kind of have our basics that we put in it,
Yeah.
but everything can be changed. I mean, I've seen some wild things in purchase agreements, and I've seen some things that were wild that we should have put in the purchase agreement, but
Yeah.
there's no defined exact way to do it.
Definitely. For sure. So if you have any questions too, like always, you can always ask us. We can talk about it on here. We can talk about it to you in person anytime. We like to break things down for everybody, and that's the point of this, to help
One
you
of
out.
the nice things with our team, I think, is that, you know, if there's something that I've never seen before and go, okay, how would you put this in the purchase agreement? Somebody in the office
Oh,
has
yeah.
seen it before.
Yeah,
There's
Or
not
has
many
a
new
good
things.
idea.
Yeah, there's not. I mean, every
there
transaction
is
different.
some new things,
Yes.
but we don't want to see them too often.
No, but usually somebody's been through something similar where we can figure things out
Yeah.
together. So, and we work great together.
Yeah, well, and it's always good to have that conversation
Mhm.
back and forth because you read it that way doesn't mean that Mary's going to read it that way, and
Yes,
it doesn't mean that that's even the way I meant it to be written. So.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like you had a listing not long ago where I was like, okay, what does this mean? And like just not even a purchase agreement, not even anything. It was an ad. And I'm like, this is how I took it. And we can be very open and talk about that stuff. And we've had a good group that
But
way.
yeah,
So
everybody looks at those things just
Oh, yeah.
a little bit different.
everybody
so.
reads something how they want to see it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, definitely. But everybody on a purchase agreement, the first things they're looking at, and they're looking at the purchase price. They're like, oh, sweet, this is what I'm getting. Okay, we keep reading.
Yeah.
Because that seller concessions might drop your price. That the commission stuff might change your price. There's other things throughout there you want to just
The
double check.
inspections and the appraisal could
Yeah.
change the price.
Sometimes that
too.
closing date, that's another thing. We'll have closing dates on there. And it says on or before. Sometimes we can close before, but that's kind of the deadline. Sometimes that deadline might be far out because the person might be waiting to move here for a while or
And the biggest thing to
other
know with a
reasons.
closing date is, it's great if we can close early.
Yes.
It's great if we can close on time. Sometimes we got to do the other way and extend it because things are not
Yeah.
done
And that's where that
100%
addendum
or
would
taking
come
a
in.
little bit longer than they should, and we just need another week or 2 weeks or whatever that looks like, and we try to work out with the buyers and sellers to figure out a solution. Maybe somebody's going to be homeless for a week. We try to figure out a solution. There's tons of options out there, but those dates fluctuate all the time.
Yeah. So there's other documents on top of this that we kind of haven't talked about that are not very common in every single one. Early occupancy, any sort of addendum. There's addendums for everything. Any sort of date change, lender changes. If they change the price, an inspection response. There's a lot of aspects. We can always talk about
Yeah,
those
even
later.
had
It could go on forever. We could
Yeah.
talk about this forever because there's a lot to a purchase agreement.
Recently, I've even had a rent back situation where,
Oh,
I've only had a couple of those, but
The seller
person-
didn't stay there.
correct. The seller sold the house, the buyer had paid for it, but then the seller rented it back for a few days just to give them time to get moved and whatnot.
I would say that's the biggest challenge that we face is trying to get everybody placed in a home or someplace with their things while they have back-to-back closings.
Well, because you closed the same day. Great. We sold our house the same day, bought our house. Okay, well, you have to be moved out of one house and into the other house. It's not like you have an hour to move out of your house. It's
Well.
like, I mean, some people, yeah, but it's
Most time it takes longer.
it takes a lot longer to move out. So yeah, you put everything in a moving truck. Cool. Now that night or two before that you're out of your house, now what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
So where are you gonna stay?
that's always the biggest struggle for us is
It is.
trying to place everybody and make sure everybody's comfortable with where they're at.
Yeah, definitely.
Last summer
So
we did that. My family
Yeah.
did that. My daughter sold her house. She bought our house, and we bought a different house. And we had to. They had to close on her house. Then we had to close on our house, and then we bought the new house, and then we all had to shift.
And that's a perfect example of we have been through it all. We
Yeah.
know how
Yes.
it goes, so we empathize with you.
Yeah.
We had to extend our closing date by at least a month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like a lot of us here in the office, I've rented. You guys have rented and stuff before. We've been renters probably at some point in some sense. We've done commercial stuff ourselves personally in
Mhm.
transactions. Like we've done it all. We've bought, we've sold, we've updated, we've flipped, we've
We've
done
done our own home sale
everything.
contingencies. We've
Yes.
lived out of a camper for a day. I mean, we've done it all.
lived with our parents with
Yeah.
3 dogs and 2
Yeah.
kids. Yep. Built a
Okay,
house.
I never
we've
done
done
that.
I didn't. I don't recommend it. I mean, my parents were great, but it was a little cramped. I think they were like, we need a bigger house. And then we moved out and they're like, wow, our house is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's weird when you get rid of all of us. So, I think that's about all we want to hit with the purchase
I think
agreement. Like you
so.
said, we'll come back to other little aspects, especially if people have questions, if there's anything
Yeah.
clarified.
And feel free to send us questions if you
We
have
like
any.
that.
Yeah.
I like that. I like
Yeah.
having people.
We would love to
tell us
answer
what they
your
want.
question. Yeah.
No, so, we have some community stuff going on, Sean. What are you supporting this, or what are we as Montgomery?
Montgomery
supporting?
is a sponsor of MX at the Decks, and that's coming up February 15th. Doors open at 5 p.m. And it sounds like they're going to have even more bikes this month than they had last month. And it was a pretty impressive show last month. I think
So-
my favorite part of MX at the Deck is motocross.
Yeah.
They're switching the track up. I
Oh,
think
cool.
coming next week or a few days before, whatever that looks like. But my favorite part was hearing the ages of some of these kids. I mean, these kids are 5 years
that
old,
crazy?
6
Like,
years old,
I have a
and they are
4-year-old
out there
literally.
and they're launching these jumps, and it's so fun to watch. It's
Yeah.
just awesome.
And this is their second show, right?
Second
They
show.
do practices throughout. This is their second show. They have 4 together.
Yeah.
So if you can't make it this week, be sure to make the other ones because it is a neat.
It'll be mid-April and then mid-May.
Yeah.
Will be the other 2 shows, but we are part sponsors of that. It was a lot of fun to watch. I mean, the stands were full. The crowd was huge. It's all in a heated building. So in the middle of winter,
Nice
you go
and
sit in the heated building and watch this. And like I say, the little kids, I mean, all of it was so fun to watch, but those little kids, I was just amazed because I'm pretty sure when I was that age, I was not thinking about racing a dirt bike and jumping hills.
And I can assure you, when my children were that age, I was not
Yeah.
thinking about how to do that.
I rode a dirt bike one time and I didn't know how to stop. I was told how to go and that was about it. I started going and
Well, you figure out the stop at some point.
you just let go of the gas and it just slows down.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
you just tip over. That's how mine experience went. So I like watching it. I don't think I would be up there with them. So I applaud every kid out there and every
Yes,
adult.
every adult, yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. So what else is coming up, guys?
Valentine's Day.
Yeah. Do you guys have any hot dates going on? Do you guys do anything?
Not usually.
We usually don't.
Well,
Well, we might
usually-
have used to, but
Usually
it's-
Valentine's Day is like the busiest night to do anything. So
Right.
it's like,
Yeah.
that's the one night I can maybe
Cook at
avoid doing things. Yeah, cook at home, yeah.
That's my theory on Valentine's Day too. We'll have a nice dinner at home. because
Yeah.
There's too many
That's true.
people out.
Oh yeah. Well,
that night.
and then everybody stays home, and it's perfect night to go
Yeah.
out. But
Yeah, yeah.
no, we're gonna our son turns 3 this next week, so yeah, we're gonna celebrate his birthday, and we scheduled on Valentine's Day, not even caring that it was Valentine's Day because we didn't even think about it. So
Well, you get to
we
stay
have
with
a hot
Mike,
date
spend it
with our
all your
whole family.
sweethearts,
Yeah.
yes.
we get cake. It's gonna be great. We're
Yeah.
gonna celebrate the heck out of it. So eat pizza
Absolutely.
and cake in town. So
There you go.
and
Yeah.
that's the thing. We do it out now, parties, and we learned that we don't want to clean up. Somebody else
Oh,
makes all the
sure.
food. We get to enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We just bring the
absolutely.
cake. So yeah, it's
That's
fun.
probably a good idea.
Yeah. It's been great.
Yeah.
This is our second time doing it. And I'm like, I like this. I
Mm.
like it a lot. So
Yeah.
enjoy it.
Thank you for listening today.
Always thank you. We like to tell your friends.
Remember
We
to
see
like
people.
and subscribe.
Yeah, and give us 5 stars.
Yes, absolutely.
5 whole ones. We like it. So
And remember, who you work with matters.